Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
David, we referenced it a bit, but you love to grill in the backyard for all kinds of occasions with friends and guests. And as I understand, one evening you discovered that grilling food and entertaining friends have one thing in common. Both the friends and the food need tending. But if you chat too much with your friends, your food on the grill gets burned. And if you focus completely on taking care of the food on the grill, you don't get to have time with the friends. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you've heard me talking about the Inventors Bootcamp, right? Over the last 3 years, hundreds of inventors have joined us in the Inventors Bootcamp, and we have lots of exciting success stories from our students. But guess what? The bootcamp is not for everyone. If you like to tinker with invention ideas occasionally on weekends, hoping that someday someone will buy your idea, the Inventors Bootcamp is not for you. If you think it's your job to just come up with ideas and someone else can take care of the rest, prototypes, packaging, and contacting companies, the Inventors Bootcamp is not for you. But if inventing really matters to you, if you know deep in your heart that you've got an invention ripe for success, if you're willing to learn and do whatever it takes to be successful, I'm here to help you, and the Inventors Bootcamp is your ticket, your next logical step forward. So, what is it? When is it? And how do you sign up? The Inventors Bootcamp is 5 days of live interactive Zoom meetings.
Monday, May 12th through Friday, May 16th.
For 1 hour each night. Teaches you precisely how to create a clear, concise marketing message, which is exactly what companies want to hear. When you join us, you'll meet other inventors, plus you get a licensing masterclass, and lots more. The next Inventors Bootcamp starts very soon.
Monday, May 12th.
Enrollment is open now. Just go to www.alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. Many podcast listeners, just like you, have joined the Inventors Bootcamp. Here are just a few of our success stories. Duncan Ashworth has 2 companies interested in licensing his COVID-killing floor sanitizing invention. Daryl Carter secured a business partner and licensing arrangement. His asthma relief product was set to debut last fall. And Julietta Hughes tested her portrait artist invention. Now she's got a clear strategy for reaching out to companies to license it. Ready to add your success story to our list? The bootcamp is your ticket. Register now at www.alanbeckley.com/bootcamp
to save your seat in the May Bootcamp. Welcome to episode number 505. Today is a rebroadcast of one of our classic favorites, episode number 424, back to July 15th of 2024 with inventor David Levy. He invented the Bola Grill, a backyard grill that allows you to grill right on the table while conversing with friends. No longer is the backyard chef left out of interesting conversations. I think you're going to enjoy this episode as much as I did. David Levy grew up in Los Angeles. He graduated from the University of California, Riverside, majoring in business and media and visual arts. His career consisted of a variety of creative endeavors, including construction, real estate, and website design. He's a true over-the-fire cooking enthusiast with 4 grills. Part of that passion comes from his Chilean heritage and the rich food culture from South America. He loves hosting friends and cooking meals over the backyard grill.
His aha moment came to become an inventor one night as he had friends over and was grilling chicken wings and corn. He got engaged with great conversations at the table, then realized he had half-burned wings and corn on the grill. He thought there ought to be a way to do both, have great conversations at the table, and to properly tend to grill food at the same time, right at the table. He searched for tabletop grills, but everything he found seemed both expensive and very basic, lacking versatility. So he invented the Bola Grill, a truly versatile tabletop grill that includes 2 stackable grills and adjustable cooking levels. Today, he sells Bola Grills on his website, enabling many others to finally combine great tableside conversations with a great grilling experience. You'll want to listen to this entire episode where David shares how he recognized that designing and building homes and websites have similarities to inventing and developing a product. Also, how he implemented a ceramic insulation barrier between the inner and outer shells of the Bola Grill to ensure the outside of the grill doesn't burn the table or those who accidentally touch it. And finally, how he overcame continual sloppy design errors with his first manufacturer in India by switching to a much better company in China that he works with today. Now let's get right to our interview with David Levy. David Levy, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet. I'd like to start out and ask, can you share a bit about your background with our listeners? Where did you grow up, then go to school? And what did you do before you became an inventor? Can you share that with us?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I've been here pretty much my entire life. I did go to college at the University of California, Riverside, so about 2 hours out of Los Angeles, where I grew up. I got 2 degrees, one in business and the other one in media and visual culture. Immediately when I got out of college, I started working in finance, and then I pivoted into designing and developing websites, which I ended up teaching myself. And then after that, I actually got into it was the family business, but I got into construction and real estate. And from then, it's just a passion of mine grew for barbecues and grills in general. And I had an idea. And so I pursued that product idea. And now here I am. I'm actually still involved a little bit in construction, but now my time is mostly spent on my product and business.
Fantastic. That's such a great story. And it also relates to having done a few hundred of these. Inventors almost never do one thing, right? Oh, I went to school and I became a CPA. Oh, no, I was a CPA for 15 years and I came up with this product idea. I find that inventors are creative people, obviously, and they typically have done various things over a period of time. As you described, designing websites, visual media and culture, and you love cooking and barbecues, and you've been involved in real estate. But you've done a variety of different things, and this I find to be a very common framework for inventors. It seems to lend itself to the creative process.
Yeah, absolutely. And then interestingly enough, I find myself as I get further and further along with my business and my product, I'm starting to see parallels between things that I've done in the past that would have seemed completely different and unrelatable to my product or inventing, but I'm starting to see parallels. For example, with construction, I'm involved from the beginning, from the design phase of a house until it gets built. And I started to notice that building a house and designing it from the ground up is almost like designing and developing a product. It's very similar, just on a much more massive scale. And then same with my website design background. I actually was able to build my own site when I launched my product and my business. So I was able to save a ton of money because of that.
David, we referenced it a bit, but you love to grill in the backyard for all kinds of occasions with friends and guests. And as I understand, one evening you discovered that grilling food and entertaining friends have one thing in common. Both the friends and the food need tending. But if you chat too much with your friends, your food on the grill gets burned. And if you focus completely on taking care of the food on the grill, you don't get to have time with the friends. You saw a bit of a challenge there, right? So, can you share with us how this dilemma led you to create a new way to grill food, the Bola Grill? And then, can you share what was your aha moment for the product? Could you share that with us?
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. So, yes, I moved in, just a little quick backstory. I moved into my first home about 5 years ago. It was the first time I was actually paying my own mortgage and had my own backyard. And that's when I got my first grill. And my passion for grilling and hosting just grew from there. I thoroughly enjoy it. And my wife and I thoroughly enjoy having people over. And my aha moment was really one night. We had guests over, they were at the table outside, and I was on the grill as usual. And they were getting into very good conversation at the table. And I hate missing out. I guess they call it FOMO, the fear of missing out. But I wanted to be at that table involved in that conversation. And I just found myself going back and forth between the table and the grill. And it became frustrating actually when I was spending too much time at the table. I'd go back to the grill and realize that my food was starting to get burnt and I should have flipped it sooner. So it was just impossible to be in both places at the same time. And I thought to myself, I wish that I had a grill on the table right now so I could be doing both at the same time. And that's when I actually set out to find a tabletop grill, and I found they do exist, but not to the level of versatility that I enjoy in my cooking. So grills can serve different purposes and have different features. A lot of the tabletop grills that were out there were very basic and really only allowed you to do very specific things. So I decided to create my own iteration of a tabletop grill where you can cook almost anything that you could even think of, right there on your table, surrounded by the people that you love.
It's a really great description, both of your aha moment. And as we alluded to in the question, you fulfilled a little bit more on the answer, the challenge of having friends and interesting conversations going at the same time somebody's got to grill the food. And usually the one grilling the food misses out on all the interesting conversations, but it's either or. And as you said, if you go get in on the conversations and it's, oh, sorry, the chicken's all burned. Okay, thanks for that. But then you looked and said, probably like almost every inventor, probably there's something out there that already does that. Surely there's something that already does that. And you found some things that were tabletop grills, but they just weren't all that functional, maybe perhaps two-dimensional in manner of speaking. And you wanted something that was just much more versatile, could do a lot more than just grill one or two items. And so that's what led you in the direction of developing your product, the Bola Grill. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
This being a podcast and people listening, it's always good to get a visual picture. So can you describe the Bola Grill where our listeners can get a visual picture of it? How large is it and how is it shaped? And is there any problem with it passing a lot of heat onto the table that it sits on? Can you share a little bit about what it looks like and how it functions?
Sure. Yes. So the grill is circular. We tried to design it in a way that it would also fit great and be a social, since it is a social product and multiple people are using it at the same time. We decided to go with a round shape. And so that round shape, the diameter is about 15 inches. It sits about 6 inches tall, so sit 6 inches off the table. Again, we didn't want to go too tall because we wanted it to be comfortable to use while you're sitting down at the table. Now, the grill does have an inner shell and an outer shell. And in between the inner and the outer shell, there's a layer of insulation. And that layer of insulation, it's a ceramic blanket that can withstand up to about 1250 degrees Fahrenheit. So there is heat transfer through the metal, but it's not going directly down to the table. It's really going up and not out or down. Now, the grill does get warm on the outside, but what I like to compare it to is if you're at a restaurant and they bring out a really hot plate and they tell you not to touch it, you could touch it. It's not a good idea, but you can touch it and not get a third-degree burn. They just advise not to. The Bola Grill is like that. So if you skid your arm on it or you touch it accidentally because it's in the middle of the table, you will feel the heat, but it's not going to be anywhere close to the grills that are out there on the market, typical freestanding grill that most people are using, where if you get close to that or you rub your arm up against it, you could get really hurt. This is not like that. So it does have that layer of insulation, the double walls. That's about 15 inches in diameter, about 6 inches tall. And then the other feature that we had that is, if I'm going to paint a picture, the grill grate can be lowered, it can be adjusted height-wise, or it can be rotated around so it doesn't have to sit directly over the actual heat source. It could turn around almost like a lazy Susan all around the table. Like I said, very social. And then to raise and lower it, that's for adjusting and controlling your temperatures easier. So the closer you bring that grill grate down to the fire or down to the heat source below, the hotter it gets. And the further away, it's more of a low heat. But yeah, those grill grates they're adjustable, they're rotatable, and we can actually put 2 grill grates on there that are stacked to one above the other. And those are interchangeable as well.
Thanks for that description. It sounds like it becomes then very versatile. And I like the fact that you've really thought this through in terms of potential risks or challenges and what would serve well, especially having an inner shell and an outer shell, and then having that ceramic insulator layer, which answered the question about what about passing heat into the table, that it prevents that from being a big issue. And of course, the shell itself could be warm, but not dangerously. And it's somewhat obvious to people that's going to be a little warm and you probably don't want to be touching it, I would guess. But I also like that you've got an adjustable grate that can go up and down. And it makes perfect sense that obviously putting it lower is going to make it hotter. Raising it's going to make it not quite as hot. Depending on what you're cooking, you might want to put it a lot closer to the heat source, or conversely, especially if you're maybe cooking some vegetables or something, maybe you don't want those so roasted quite so hot. So maybe you might raise those a bit. And also just overall, the fact that it's about 6 inches tall makes it accessible for people when they're sitting. And then the 15-inch diameter makes it where it doesn't take up the entire room of the table, from the way I gathered from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it. There are side rods that are located on the outside of the grill, and that's where those grill grates are attached to. And those rods are actually marked, even though it is obvious that the lower you go, the hotter it is, they are marked for low heat, medium, and high heat at the bottom. It's a very easy grill to use, and it's actually quite an addicting way to cook. And when I was saying earlier that I couldn't find anything out there on the market that had the versatility of cooking that I like to use, this is a type of grilling. It's actually called Santa Maria grilling, and it's the ability to raise and lower your grill grate and control the heat in that way. When I started using types of grills, I got so addicted to it. And as far as I know, I have the only tabletop grill that has that feature.
Yeah, that's really good. And as you were describing, making it pretty explicit about having just things on the side that show that it's going to make it warmer or cooler, it is something all of us discover in our inventing journey. People, by and large, are not great about reading instructions, sometimes even somewhat simple instructions. One of the gentlemen I had on the podcast earlier, Kevin Moran, has a really cool product that's called the 5-minute pet bath. And essentially, it connects at the top to a shower, and then it brings the water down where the animal is with a gentle sprayer. And it solves a problem that most people bathing their pets or their dogs, it sprays out just like straight from the shower, and that actually frightens them. But the point I was going to make from this is, in the beginning, he thought, surely it's going to be pretty obvious that the dispenser head, so to speak, has got to be below the shower head, right? Because it's gravity flow. And he'd find people would give them 1 star and say they couldn't get the thing to work. And they would be talking about how they had it way up in the air. And he thought, and he'd even said in the instructions, and he thought, oh my gosh, it doesn't think about it. But still, something that simple, some people weren't getting. So he had to make the instructions really explicit.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. And yeah, it really couldn't be more obvious when you're using this product, how it actually works and how to actually cook on it. It does take a little bit of practice until you really figure out how to cook a good steak, for example. But when you're using it's actually fun. And when you figure it out and you finally do make that delicious steak on it, it's and you feel that reward from it, it's truly addicting, this style of cooking.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Well, one thing I want to point to it, every inventor encounters barriers and roadblocks along their invention journey, just part of the journey. So, could you share with us what was one of your biggest challenges in developing the Bola Grill and how did you overcome that? Could you share that with our listeners?
Absolutely. So my biggest challenge, and it's not even close, is manufacturer that I originally decided to go with for this grill. I actually found a company, they're located in Austin, Texas, and their whole thing was we'll guide you from A to Z. So we'll help you from designing the product to getting a manufacturer. So I put my faith into them and ended up with a manufacturer in India. And so I figured, you know what? I'm in good hands with this company that I found online. And so I trust them. And so I didn't think twice. I didn't do much research and talk to other manufacturers. And really, I didn't know anything about manufacturing. So I really just put my faith in their hands and got connected with this manufacturer. And every sample that they sent over had something wrong or something broken or was sloppy in some way. And I'd have them fix that. And then they'd send a new sample. And then something else was broken or something else looked terrible. And it was like that for about 5 samples where I would correct one thing and then it would take another month or 2 months for them to fix that. And then the grill would come and then something else was wrong. It was very frustrating. And about 5 samples in, and probably over the course of at least a year of working with this manufacturer, I decided that, you know what, if I actually go with this manufacturer and they box up my product and I start selling these off and shipping them to customers, people are going to open them up. They're going to find broken handles. They're going to find loose screws, and I'm going to get terrible reviews and I'm going to end up going bankrupt. And so I made the very difficult decision to pull the plug with this manufacturer. And this is after, like I said, spending about a year with them. I'd spent a lot of money with them. And I really got to a point where I had to speak with my wife and decide if I even want to continue to pursue this product and this idea. It was actually pretty traumatic. So I knew I'm pulling the plug regardless, and I made the difficult decision to actually continue and try to find another manufacturer and work with a new manufacturer and just reboot the product, get it done from scratch, go through sample after sample again, and finally get inventory out there. And so I did it, and I actually went with a manufacturer that had reached out to me. I did a crowdfunding campaign a couple of years ago, and someone or a few different manufacturers had reached out to me. But at the time, I was already working with this manufacturer in India, so I didn't think anything of it. But I went back to these people that had reached out to me, and this one in particular got on a few different calls with him, and he actually ended up sending me a sample of an attachment that I was doing for the grill. And I actually really liked his work. So I said, you know what? I'm going to give this guy a chance to actually create the entire grill. And so I pulled the plug on one manufacturer and I pivoted to a new one, this one located in China. And it took this manufacturer 2 samples to get it right. So it was a huge relief. And I'm so thankful that this person originally reached out to me and that it ended up working out. But that was a huge learning curve for me and a huge mistake that I made that I wish I could go back and change, but learned a ton.
Yeah, and it's frustrating and it's painful, but it is part of the journey. And it's something that happens with some frequency to people. The first manufacturer they went to just didn't work out, or it could even be that it did, but then they couldn't scale up to volumes. There's so many different things that can go wrong. But actually, the key point from the way you're telling the story to me is when you reflected, all right, this is the beginning of the journey and it's not going well. If I project this to 5 years later, what is that going to look like? And that's when you said, oh, it could be a disaster. I could have tens of thousands of dollars in the pipeline here and having unhappy customers and bad reviews. And as you said, it could put me out of business. So that's when it became clear to you, and I suspect, and to your wife, that this is not a company we can move forward with. That now you say, now what do we do? So you have to start over from scratch. So I really appreciate you sharing that story because I think it resonates with our listeners, and probably many of them have had somewhat similar experiences, I imagine.
Exactly.
I want to ask you, is the Bola Grill patented or patent pending? And also, what do you see as your path to commercializing it, either venturing, building a business around, doing it all yourself, or licensing it? What do you see as that sort of primary path you're going to pursue?
Sure. So it is currently patent pending. I do have so it's for a design patent. And I figured I was thinking about going the utility patent route, but my patent attorney, we had a long conversation about it. And a lot of the features that are a part of this grill do exist in some capacities, but the design and the way that it's all put together, that's what's unique about it. So we went the design patent route, and that's currently pending. And then to answer your other question regarding commercialization, down the line, my thought is to grow this business myself organically, try to get as many positive reviews as I can, and then eventually start pivoting to starting to try to sell in stores. But as of right now, no real interest in licensing it, but I do have an interest down the line of getting it into stores.
It makes sense. And I do like in Shark Tank, you often hear somebody will say, I'm selling it online, right? I've got a web presence and it's going pretty well, and this, and that, and the other, and their metrics look good. And they say, but my real goal is to get into retail stores. And they're like, there's a lot of additional costs that go with that. And it's a really big challenge. If it ain't broke, don't fix it just yet. In other words, if you've got a go-to market strategy, it's actually working pretty well right now. Retail stores are good, but they come with slotting fees and all kinds of other slightly more complicated issues. So I think that step-by-step approach makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And also, some of the companies that I follow that are in similar spaces, I've seen them go through, it's been like a similar business model where it looks like they're doing really well, or they're really successful, or they have a ton of reviews. And then after a couple of years, I'm starting to notice, okay, now they're getting into retail. So it's like they're really establishing the business. And I think that's probably what makes it easier to get into stores, because those stores are seeing an established brand, good reviews, a lot of customers. They're seeing the validation right there in front of them. And it probably makes it easier to get into stores. I could go and approach a store right now, but I don't even know if it'll probably be a huge challenge just to even speak to someone, just because of the product and the business is still so new.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. David, as we roll towards a close, are there any parting words that you'd like to leave us with?
So there is actually a quick story that I'd love to share. And a lot of times people use the phrase that they poured their blood, sweat, and tears into something. And this is something that I actually literally did. And it's more of a recent story. I'll try to tell it real quick. But I had a shipment of wood, because I sell flavored cooking wood on my website. And it was the first time I had a shipment of wood coming in from Minnesota. It was a huge bag of cooking wood, about 1,000 pounds. And my plan was to put this in my storage facility, box it up, and sell wood as an option to go along with the grill. And this was actually the first shipment of good that I was receiving for my storage space. And so the truck came, they unloaded a pallet. It was about 1,000 pounds, huge bag of wood. And the guy unloaded it with a pallet jack. We tried to get it to my storage space, and it wouldn't fit through the door. And I could not believe it. The guy had to leave, so he just left the pallet there with the wood. I didn't want to leave it because I wasn't going to go and get a shovel or get gloves and start working my way to getting that wood into my storage space, because then I'd be leaving it in the public. And this is my baby. I paid a lot for this. I was not going to leave it unsupervised. So I decided to move this wood with my hand. So from the bag into my storage space. And it was just going. I was dripping sweat. My hands were splinters and bleeding. And And I was looking down, I was just thinking, I cannot believe I'm doing this. This is such a sacrifice to start selling my own product and eventually be my own boss. So I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the sacrifice I was making. But at the end of the day, it was for me. I wasn't doing that for anybody else. So there was blood, sweat, and tears involved, and it was worth it.
Such a great story. I appreciate you sharing that with us because it's very visual and it's very much truly a blood, sweat, and tears story. And especially, it just speaks to some of the many frustrations that we can have as an inventor. We get a big shipment of something, especially a palletized shipment, and we don't think about how much room does that take up exactly. Many years ago, I was having my wallet shipped on pallets from China. So it'd be a pretty big shipment. I have a Honda Accord. And when I'd go to pick it up, I thought, all right, how can I get all this stuff to fit in my car? Which I managed, but it was a tight fit. But that's one of the things that we encounter. Final question for you is how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions?
The best way to reach me would be either through the website, bolagrills.com, or just reach out directly via email at hello@bolagrills.com.
Perfect. So that's bolagrills.com, BOLAGRILLS.com. It's your website. And they can reach you at hello@bolagrills.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Super. David, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us and sharing your journey, your ups, your downs, your blood, sweat, and tears, as it were, as you went through creating this product and recognizing a problem that needed to be solved. And I'd like to reserve the opportunity, maybe another 6 months or a year, to reach out to you again and see what you got going on at that time.
I'd love that. Feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you again for being on the podcast, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Alan.
You bet. I've got a question for you. How's your invention journey going? Is it smooth sailing, or are you facing some challenges? If you're facing some challenges, I have a possible answer for you. I've been offering custom coaching for a number of years now to help inventors who are facing issues like China sourcing issues. It just doesn't seem to be happening. Or prototyping challenges. Takes forever, it's costing too much. Or perhaps your pitches seem to be falling on dead ears. Maybe we can help you give it a tune-up. These and other issues I've helped a lot of inventors with over the years because odds are, in the over 20 years I've been an inventor, the odds are good that I face the exact same issue you might be facing now. And I think custom coaching might just be the tune-up, the tonic that you need to help you get to the next place. So if you'd like to explore this and see if custom coaching is the path for you to get past your current obstacle, I'd be happy to work with you. Just reach out to me at alan@alanbeckley.com. That's ALAN @alanbeckley.com. And please put in the subject line, custom coaching. Now, I've got quite a few coaching engagements going on currently, but I do have 3 slots open between now and about mid-July. So I'd love to explore seeing if we might be able to help you get past those challenges you're facing and get you some traction faster than you're getting right now. Again, if this sounds interesting to you, just reach out to me, alan@alanbeckley.com, and put in the subject line, custom coaching. I'll get in touch with you, and I'll either help you or point you in the right direction to somebody else who can help you. As always, thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.